and welcome back to Pundits Corner. We are now joined by our very special guest, Zöe, who I don't think needs an introduction, but I'll let you have a chance anyway.
Thank you. So I'm Zöe Franklin. I am Guildford's new MP from July last year, but I'm also a graduate of University of Surrey.
Thank you very much. And of course, we are once again joined by Emma and Tom.
Yes.
So thank you all very much for coming, and thank you very much, Zoe, for
Pleasure.
making the time. I absolutely loved watching the candidates' faces as you saw them on stage. One of the candidates said before, like, oh, I saw Emma Rousel in the crowd. I'm so certain that she's going to be the presidential surprise. So seeing their face just completely popped was excellent. So I'll start with you, if that's okay. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and these people, the presidents, are wanting to put themselves forward to lead not only the union but the university to some extent. So what kind of challenges do you think could be coming their way as a leader? What are the kind of things they're going to learn about themselves?
Yeah, so I think they'll learn very quickly that it can be a very lonely place, even when you are surrounded by people. And you know, you've got to learn to deal with that. Your friends and colleagues remain your friends and colleagues, but it is a slightly different role being a union president, as with any political role. And I think the other one is just the challenge of they will have promised many things in their manifestos and they will have many ideas that they want to deliver. But actually, often when you get into post, the reality hits and you have to then make difficult choices, and then you need to learn to how to communicate that well with the people you've been elected to serve.
Definitely. And it was really interesting. That was a good question of what will they do when they get in post, and they might have to start cutting back on some of those promises. And what was discussed, we had the idea of transparency, the honesty of admitting when you can't get there, and explanations why. I guess, do you have any advice for any candidates who might find themselves in that position this time next year?
Yeah, so I thought it was really impressive, some of the answers that they gave, and in particular the ones around that honesty and transparency.
Yeah, sure.
I think people are looking for authenticity in their future president and leaders in their lives, and so that ability to admit when it hasn't gone to plan and explain why and be transparent, you will be able to bring people with you, and people will often understand when you have to make difficult calls and not deliver, as long as you take them with you.
Yeah, very, very grateful for your insight there, Zoe. And one of the things that you don't expect as union president is when you have to teleport from way up there in Rubik's main dance floor down to Pundits Corner in less than a minute. So interesting where things take you. I'm going to pass over to the other pundits, because obviously a big part of being a sabbatical officer, but presidency more specifically, is the idea that you can't predict what's going to come. You come in with your own manifesto and things that you want to change, and we've heard some brilliant justifications for that this evening. But what are the kind of things that these candidates might be facing next year once they're in post? What's coming up that we think are going to be those real big issues they're going to have to contend with?
Well, that's interesting. I wish we could predict. I mean, I think the thing about higher education is it's never predictable, is it? So there's very likely to be regulation change that comes along. I think the Labour government's still finding its feet, and we don't know quite what might happen over the next 12 months. But then looking more locally to Surrey, unions have been balloting. We could face strike action again. Cost of living will continue, I'm sure. So I think there will be challenges that they might not think now, that they'll definitely have to deal with as they go through. And the university's going through a lot of change anyway, isn't it? So, launched the 2041 strategy, the university priorities, Max stepping down as Vice-Chancellor. It's going to be a year of change, and they might think they know now what they're going to head, but I don't think 1 year in HE has ever been what I thought it was going to be.
I liked actually quite a number of the candidates actually, and particularly the presidents, had housing within their manifesto. There's a lot of changes going on with the housing market, both naturally just as the market changes and also within the law. So seeing those changes and seeing how they adapt to that will be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And for some context for the people watching at home, something that I was really passionate about this year for the Students' Union was making sure that we have more of a voice on the political level, on the national level, for us to be consulting. And we very gratefully had your support, Zoe, and yours, Tom, when we were talking and consulting for the Renters' Rights Bill, for example. So it's really interesting seeing these big-scale issues and figuring out how we can really build our students' voices in.
It's hitting the ground running as well, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like getting that understanding, a real in-depth understanding, very, very quickly, because they've only got a year to do it. So they've got to really get their head around it and get involved.
Yeah, and I'll come back to you, Zoe. I feel like we've started a really good framework this year. I'm really proud of what we've done so far in starting that conversation, because it's something that's new for us, and it's something that I really hope the president next year is going to pick up and run with. If they don't, I'll be back and I'll be very upset with you. But I guess from your perspective, what are the kind of ways that our presidents, our next sabbatical officers, and broadly the Students' Union, even university, how can we have influence in those big political questions, not just about renters' rights, but the higher education funding model and these existential things that feel so big that we don't know how to tackle?
Yeah, really, really good question. And I think part of it is talking to me as the local MP, but then also many of the students will come from different locations across the UK and actually engaging with their own back home MP as well. I think it's really understand for all MPs, including those who aren't in university towns and constituencies, to understand the issues facing students, because it's easy to forget when you've been many years hence from university, you won't know what it's like to be a student. And certainly the world has changed enormously just in the last sort of 5 years, particularly since COVID. And we need to understand as politicians what students are going through. And I think there's also that thing of, you know, coming together with other university student union and talking with them and using that group voice as well to speak into consultations like you did on the Renters' Rights Bill, which I think was fantastic that you made sure Surrey's voice was heard through that. And there will be many, many more of those consultations and grasping every opportunity to do so.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the idea of building a network, because obviously the Students' Union here will be disaffiliated from the NUS, but we do have a strong network of the Southern Unions, which is currently a conference, but I'm very excited to see how the informal links we have with other unions, how we build that up and really make sure that we do have a voice there when we can come together. All these conversations, I mean, the past few nights have been a journey for me, because I'm seeing people go for part-time positions, and I'm thrown back to 5 years ago at the start of COVID, and watching that debate, I got a bit bleary-eyed again, because it's like, that was me last year, and I mean, thankfully I didn't have the pressure of you, an MP coming on stage and terrifying me, but it sort of got me thinking about that idea of legacy and what we leave behind, and like how I opened up the night, the idea of us as trusteeship, this contribution to a longer-term legacy. And throwing to you, Emma, the university this year launched a Vision 2041, the big strategy about what the university is wanting to do in terms of growth, and not just in terms of student numbers, but service provision. In your ideal world, what is our role to play with that? What is the role of the president and the Students' Union in helping that vision, helping us towards that vision?
I think your role is absolutely core to it. You know, you were involved in presenting that strategy to the staff, and I think that really demonstrates how central that student voice role is and in developing that vision and then helping us take that forward. Because it's great to have 2041 vision, isn't it? And we've got some brilliant statements that we want to achieve, but the devil is always in the detail. So I think the union and the president and all the sabbatical officers' role is to just keep harnessing that student voice. And lots of people tonight have talked about wanting, you know, being part of the student community, wanting to make every student feel like they can channel through the student union. And wouldn't that be brilliant if all 17,000 of our students were really inputting into what comes next in terms of that strategy? What do we really need to deliver for our students? So for me, that's the important thing, is your role to play is to keep reminding us of what we're here to do.
For sure. And I'm glad that we have the relationship where we can be a positive voice in that, and we can say quite comfortably that we are able to contribute to that, and on a more political scale that we are able to contribute to how students are viewed on that national level. I guess one final quick question from me is, we had that question of like talking legacy. Currently we are the 5th best students' union in the country, very happy in the United Kingdom, very happy to tout that. But what can we be doing to get even better, do we think? How can we bring ourselves to I'll ask each of you, what would be one thing you think we could be doing to really bring us up one step?
I'll start, and I think actually you've already started doing that. And I think that engagement that you are doing with people like myself, with the kind of the wider politicians through Guildford Borough Council and Surrey, is going to make a huge difference both for the union, also Surrey University, but also for the students here and beyond, because actually getting that voice to the people who make the political decisions that will impact every single one of your students is ever so important.
Yeah, thank you. Any thoughts?
Absolutely, yes, it's similar engagement. Nights like tonight, getting the student body absolutely engaged on nights like tonight, and getting ideally you'll get 17,000 votes or more, because they'll vote multiple categories. And it's getting those numbers up, getting the students involved with the union to make the union as strong as it possibly can be. So that's what I'd like to see.
And Emma?
Yeah, it's really similar, but I think it's spreading the word. So it's making sure that every single student knows what you're here to do and why it's really important that they engage with you. So the value of the student union, and then I think that will drive those numbers up. I think sometimes it's not that they don't think you're the best in the country, it's that they just don't know the role that you've played. So I think it's blowing your own trumpet wherever you can, whenever you can.
And speaking of blowing trumpets, I did have the opportunity to say it on stage, but I just want to once again just have a massive shout out to the student volunteers. The level of pure talent for
professionalism.
Yeah,
absolutely.
for Stag TV and Stage Crew to be able to put things like this on. We should really be celebrating this, and I'm very grateful for everyone in this room around me and everyone who makes these things possible. I do have to wrap things up though. Thank you very much for all of your time, each and every one of you, for making the effort, making Pundits so exciting, and for giving those presidential candidates probably the shock of their lives. Like, genuinely, such schadenfreude from me. It was great to watch. So thank you very much. Thank you all for tuning in and staying involved. One final reminder, of course, is that voting is officially now open. Voting will close on Saturday, the 1st of March at 7 o'clock. So please make sure you cast those votes for each of the candidates, get involved, and make sure that you have your say. Thank you very much for everybody who's made this possible, whether they're here with me now, watching online, been supporting our candidates, or indeed been running. Thank you all very much, and as always, take care.